Chapter 1. Ewan and the Sky. Ewan darted through the clouds, parting the fog like a curtain, the air brisk and cold against his slate-gray scales. His blood pounded hot through his heart and the veins in his wings. Thrilled with his speed, he let forth a primal roar before diving towards the earth. Below him lay a turquoise-blue mountain lake, pristine and calm. His body slammed into it, sending a 6-foot swell across the surface. The resulting splash echoed about the mountains for miles. Ewan submerged. His talons scraped the muddy bottom of the lake, spooking fish and stirring sediment. Pushing off from the bottom with his trunk-like forelegs, he shot from the water. Droplets misted about him. He inhaled deeply and exhaled a cloud of steam before spinning into the sky once more. This is freedom. This is joy. This is all I need, he repeated to himself for the 1,000th time since abandoning his friends and family in Westshire. After nearly 3 months, he was starting to believe it. Ewan had headed deep into the wild mountains, where humans were scarce and dragons still had a foothold. In the 6 years that he'd been a dragon, he'd rarely conversed with others of his kind. When he did, it was only for a quick exchange of news before they went their separate ways. He would learn if there were hunting parties in the immediate vicinity, or, sometimes, just as dangerous, a female in heat. At 27, Ewan was still considered juvenile, too young to mate. He often wondered if, when the time was ripe, would he actually find the idea of mating with another worm appealing? Dragons had lifespans averaging 300 years after all, and if he had inherited that longevity along with the form, then who knew what the decades would do to his thinking? In time, he might forget any part of him had ever been human. He hoped so. His morning exercise complete, Ewan thought of food. He hadn't eaten all week. He wasn't starving, but he'd seen no signs of humans or other dragons in the area for at least a month. It would be good to bolster his energy reserves while he was still the top predator. He had noticed a herd of elk the day before. A good meal followed by a catnap would keep him busy until at least the afternoon, though what to do for the rest of the day eluded him. He hated to admit it, but he was already bored with the so-called freedoms of his current life. The ennui had set in quicker than expected. Based on his pre-Shannon existence, he had hoped to acclimate and even enjoy the solitude. Instead, he longed for one of their often one-sided conversations. It was an absurd weakness. Whenever he caught himself thinking of her, he would boil over with frustration and take to the skies. He glided over the lake towards the meadow, where 30 head of elk stood. The largest of the cows stood about 1/4 of Ewan's own size, making them the perfect feast. The sentry caught sight of him and let out a warning cry. It made little difference. The cows closest to the tree line stampeded for cover, but he already had his sights on one drinking at the water's edge. He dove, talons sinking into the great kicking beast. His mighty grasp snapped its spine. Not wanting to draw scavengers to his lair, he took his kill to a small island. He gorged, crunching down bones and fur along with the meat, before cleansing himself in the lake and soaring back towards the sheltered overhang he had chosen for his home. The crag was not quite a cave. The pool lapping against the rock had carved it during winter floods. Now, at the end of summer, the waterfall was no more than a trickle and the basin empty, save for a stagnant puddle. The shade and the mossy rocks provided a comfortable shelter for sleeping, which was all he required. The large meal heavy in his belly, he gave in to the lethargy and slipped into a pleasant, dreamless sleep. When he opened his eyes, the sun sat low in the sky. He stretched and inhaled deeply. Something strange wafted in the air. A human smell. He stood and ventured out into the sunlight, still sluggish, but ready to flee should the need arise. The scent definitely hadn't been there earlier. There were few reasons for humans to stray into this area. Outlaws often took shelter here, and with these he had a live-and-let-live policy. Then there were the occasional hunter after furs, a trophy, or food to feed a family. But on the rarest occasions, they came specifically for dragons.